All right, y'all will go ahead and get started. Let me 1 second. Mm, All right, everybody should be able to hear and see. We are recording. Yes, we are. Perfect. Post this in a Discord real quick. Mm, 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 mm. So I want to post a quick summary real quick and give you guys a lot of questions, a few questions that came in on the back end. So I wanted to take this opportunity to go over a couple things tonight. Um, Want to actually update. Purpose of tonight's session is really more so for some long-term investing purposes wise to make sure that there's no opportunity that goes not talked about, spoken on. So I want to kind of provide you guys with this real quick. So definitely go ahead and follow my screen here. Should be able to see. And where we go. There we go. So you come to the thoughts and breakdowns channel, you should see the image just load up. So we have a couple of buys right now. So I want to make everybody aware of where the buys are actually at. So the buys on the market, particularly, what can I say to you? So Oracle, ZS, CrowdStrike, Netflix, Amazon, UNH, UPS, VST. So I widely predict that we are going to analyze and see. We're going to see the first ticker I want to talk about is AMZN first. So I actually want to come and talk about AMZN. We got these behemoths in MU and as well AMZN. The reason why I want to talk about AMZN is what happens when Amazon catches the bug that Google caught, because that's going to happen actually to me sooner rather than later. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Amazon. We already know I have a 270 to $300 price target on them for this year. So these are stocks that are buys right now. UNH is a buy right now. Netflix, even though I'm still a little bit neutral on it, I do have to say that Netflix at these areas and levels is a buy as well. So ticker NFLX. We talked about this obviously over the past few months. Everyone I know for a fact knows what the best price is, which is $55. As we all know, best prices don't always materialize, but you do want to take advantage of Netflix. CrowdStrike. I am looking at pretty much Oracle, kind of like leaning on this buy right now. You also have UPS and VST. I'm a little bit more cautious with VST, but I do think it is worth the buy. Now, there's some tickers that you notably don't see. Enphase Energy, I'm not going to say it's not a buy, but I wouldn't buy it at these levels. I would wait for a pullback. NVO, I wouldn't buy at these levels either. I wouldn't buy it. I wouldn't want to pay this price for NVO. Just my thoughts on it. So when you are looking specifically at VST, you do have Vistra Corp, which is currently at $160. I am giving it a buy rating right now. So this list is full of tickers that are buys today. All right, so you can take these, do your technicals as well on them. So Oracle, ZS, CrowdStrike, Netflix, Amazon, UNH, UPS, VST. All of these are buys right now. So just wanted to make sure that note was clear. Also, I want to take some time in a second to go through what I posted today on Microsoft and as well Meta. So Microsoft, I want to go through why Microsoft is attractive here. Stock is down $100 from its recent high. This is the type of pullback that you look for. To me, on both, right? You do have 2x levered ETFs on both Microsoft and as well Meta platforms. But I think that when I look at a technical perspective on Microsoft, this is the spot where I think it's worth the shot. Because I don't know if we're going to get sub 400 just from looking at the chart. I don't know if we come all the way back down and go sub $400. So this is an area where we do have earnings, obviously, which is going to come here on Wednesday of next week. So earnings on the 28th after hours, after the Fed comes out. So if you look back to April, right, we came from about almost around like 350 a share, shot up here to the upside, peaked out at 550. I'm looking at Microsoft, which is currently at about 451. You're looking as well here on a daily time frame. I want to give you guys a couple areas to watch, which would be 425. Below there, you could have a gap down to 400 if, obviously things do continue. But I think that this is a good spot if you're talking Microsoft and Meta, which is why particularly I told people, that uh, these are good areas and good spots. So Microsoft, Meta, do not sleep on both of these tickers and miss out on them back to the upside. You'll find it very rare that Microsoft pulls back this much. And when it does, it usually starts going the opposite direction. So Microsoft is a buy. Meta Platforms is a buy. These are two tickers that you want to spend some time doing a little bit of homework on, especially ahead of these earnings. So let's talk situation and scenario. Let's say Microsoft and both Meta actually go ahead and pull back on their earnings. All right, let's talk about it because obviously something that could happen. And, let's say it does, right? Let's say Microsoft and Meta pull back on their earnings. Are you a buyer of it or are you a seller? I think you have to be a buyer. All right. You would definitely have to be a buyer on specifically both of those names. So my thoughts on Microsoft. And then now if you're looking at Meta, which currently now Meta Platforms is at about 6. And this is why I say buyers will step in at these key levels quicker than what you think. So yeah, we had a 30-point day. Some people excited about it. I'm not. I was hoping that Meta would have gotten cheaper. But what you see is a lot of demand coming in here at this $600 price level. And with some of the main reasons why you also see Amazon up about $1 and change overnight. But do take advantage of your Amazon AMZN. You have a 28P to E here, particularly on Meta. So this is a business that generates $22.62 EPS. So if you think that this business is just going to trade here in the 600s for forever, that's not going to happen. I predict by summertime we'll be 700 plus. And so if you want, once again, if you want access into Meta Platforms, now is realistically your time to take advantage. Just like I'm stressing with Microsoft, don't let summer come and Microsoft and Meta, Microsoft's back over 5, Meta's back over 700. And then you come and you ask me, is it too late? Because you already know what the answer is going to be. So these next couple of months, if we get a pullback, let's say we get more of a pullback here coming in on the market, going into obviously February and March, like I said, don't sleep on this setup and this pullback. So just my thoughts on particularly Meta and as well Microsoft. So Meta, Microsoft, 2 stocks. Do not ignore these names and do pick these names up at this time. Want to cover a couple other names, particularly next is Robinhood, which is probably, or if I had a particular wish list, they would be a top 5 on my wish list. But let's talk about Hood, which has earnings here Tuesday, February 10th. So earnings are getting ready to come up. I want everyone to put down an alert for $92. Obviously, we've talked about Hood extensively as far as grabbing this thing at $70. That's the price, obviously, that you want to get Hood at. The next question is, do you start to get more of these ARK ETF names to sell off? You have Hood, which is in position where Hood could pull back. You also have Palantir. Personally, I believe Palantir is going to go back to the 140s. I'm going to get to Palantir here in a second. Palantir is going to get down here to the 140s. So I think you want to look at ticker PLTR, pulling back down more. I'm also bearish on names like Coinbase, which is at 223. I'm also bearish on MicroStrategy, bearish on short-term, bearish on Hood, long-term bullish, but it's about price is right. Price is right at about $70 a share. So I want to see Robinhood pull down. Also in the midst of that, I have Palantir, PLTR, which I actually want to add the levels back down here on Palantir. Come to your daily and take a look right here at that 148 level. So once we get underneath 161, Palantir come back down to that 148. A lot of people have asked me and have said to me, Lawrence, where would you buy particularly Palantir? Answer to that question is I wouldn't pay over $100 for it. And I truthfully mean that. Do not pay over $100 for this. And I was about to say a bad word, but I stopped myself. Do not pay over $100 for this ticker. I'm gonna stress this as much as I can. Do not pay over $100 for this ticker. Incredibly overvalued company. I do think that this name obviously has stretched itself very thin and very far, very fast. But this is a name that I would stay away from. I would not try to put myself in a position where you're buying this name at these all-time highs. So Palantir, I'm going to say it again. I'm going to warn people, protect yourself on this downside because PLTR be coming down like Robinhood. These names just happen to belong to the same ETF, which is the ARK ETF. So you can see that on the charts that this is kind of developing. So I don't think that these tickers are particularly safe. I actually think that these tickers will actually transition a bit to the downside. So particularly here on the ARK ETF, Tesla, obviously you see Roku here, Coinbase, Shopify has already started getting rotated out of more. So let me show you here on Shop, because this is when Shop is already back in the 140s. Oh, excuse me, 130 today. Fell back to 137. So Shopify now is about to actually start to fall as well. Shop is probably going to go back to in the 120s and the teens, right? 114, 120. So you start to look there. There's a rotation. So you can see the rotation out of some of these ARK names. So don't be surprised if you see Palantir pull back off their earnings. Shopify reports earnings around the same time, Wednesday, February 18th. So Shopify will come out with their quarterly numbers as well. So you are going to see particularly these businesses start to get rotated out of, and you're going to see a move here on the downside. All right. So I do take these things down. Want to provide some updates on a couple things. Moderna. And this is why I say I just actually got off, and you heard me say this. Shout out to Miss Jen. She did a little interview with me tonight, so it's dope to be on her channel. But a lot of times when you hear bad things about it, remember how much bad news was coming out about mRNA. mRNA this, mRNA that. Remember all the mRNA BS that you was hearing. Well, look at what's happened. Remember, we sat on these Zooms November, December, even October, and we talked about picking up mRNA. And we talked about this breakout before it happened. Once again, this is a recipe just as an example of when something's in an accumulation or something's being bashed, pay attention to the chart and the fundamentals and ask yourself, is this a good risk to reward? At the time, we thought it was, and obviously it's panned out to be that, but also know what the ticker is. So as quick as mRNA can come up, is as quick as its ass can come down. So you want to be careful with mRNA. In my opinion, this thing get to 60 some bucks. I mean, I even think now would be a good time to take profit because don't get it twisted. There'll be profits taken off. This is not a value name. So it's not going to be a lot of people that sit back and stay in this name and say, well, we just trust this name altogether. Remember, there's a lot of people that's been bag holding. So I would keep that in mind on a name like this. If you are playing it with me, protect yourself on the downside. It probably would be best to start looking at taking some profits here. This thing has ran pretty fast. Just my thoughts. Coinbase. I just got finished talking about Coinbase a little. I want to show you something. Coinbase, as everybody knows on this call, 100 to 20, 140 bucks. That's the price that we want. Now, MicroStrategy, still right now, which is at about 160 bucks. MSTR, we want to get this thing really about 100 bucks, maybe even as low as 70. Now, 70 is going to happen. Not too sure about it, but at 70, that would be a dream price to pick up MSTR. I personally still believe Coinbase and MicroStrategy have more room to go down. Do you want to be buyers of these things when prices obviously retrace and come down? For sure. You want to pick up MicroStrategy. You want to pick up Coinbase, right? For that next Bitcoin run. Whenever that happens, probably it'd be next year, which would be 2027, in anticipation of the 2028 halving. So this would be the last down year for Bitcoin, probably until the end of the decade, right? So the last down year for BTC until the end of the decade, till really the next decade. We will just say next decade because it won't be another down year until after 2030, right? So, on Bitcoin, when you are monitoring and looking at it, BTC obviously is probably set up a little bit to sell, at least maybe in the beginning part of this year. I don't know about the back half, but underneath that 80K still needs to be where you're watching. Underneath 80K, break of this bear flag. Notice we're still sitting in this bear flag. You're probably not going to get anywhere in the 50s. Like I said before, I don't see Bitcoin getting below 50K ever again. These are your spots, right? That flush, that quick flush, because it might not even be there long. In the 60s and in the 70 range will probably end up being your best price this year. Whenever that quick flush happens, it'll probably happen over the weekend at some point, one of these weekends this year. It'll be very quick. So pick up. I just want to encourage people, please do not leave this year. Understand this is your last time getting Bitcoin underneath 100,000 ever. Next cycle, it won't be Bitcoin underneath 100,000 ever again. So this is your last cycle being able to get it underneath 100K. So that's why I keep saying that every single Zoom. So when that actually turns into reality, people understood how serious I was about it and making sure that people knew and understood what the opportunity was at hand. All right. So very, very, very important. Gotta stress this. I know a lot of people obviously are listening here tonight and obviously want to take advantage of as much as they can. So just my initial thoughts specifically at this time. All right. Next stock that we talked about a little bit earlier on the list, but I want to make sure that people understand the present opportunity, and that's Oracle, as well as I want to cover Salesforce, which is ticker CRM. So Salesforce is in pretty much a 3-year demand zone. So I don't know how much Salesforce is going to continue to drop. I want to cover Oracle because I was actually, funny enough, when I was in the chair today, my barber, he had on CNBC. And one thing that piqued my interest was they started to bash Oracle. So that was like, that kind of excited me a little bit. I was like, okay, they bashing Oracle. So that means it's time to maybe not slap a buy all the way, right? Maybe not heavy, but it was definitely time for me to recommend it for a buy. And it's getting to the levels that we want. Obviously, we want 100, $120. And I think that can happen faster than maybe what we think. Ideally, I'm excited to see what happens here Monday, the 16th of March, when earnings come out. But this is one I think you should put on your radar for, the rest of the year. Notice no one's talking about Oracle. That's the time you want to buy. What I keep stressing to people is the time you want to buy your tickers is when no one's talking about them. Remember, no one was talking about Enphase. If Enphase starts to get talked about too much, I want to sell. Moderna, I want to sell now because I'm like, okay, I'm hearing too much about it. Not to say that it can't continue to keep running, but when the tickers that you bought when it was quiet start to be, the talk of the town, that's usually the time you want to start rolling out the other way. And so now I'm hearing bashing when it comes to Oracle. I'm also hearing some negative comments when it comes to ticker CRM as well, too. I wanted to bring this up. So Salesforce, I wanted to just show people like Salesforce is sitting in a heavy demand zone. So it's not going to be easy for Salesforce to stay this low. I think both tickers are in decent spots. I'm not going to say great spots, but I think that Oracle and Salesforce are in decent spots. And they would be in great spots if both, funny enough, if both tickers fell like another $40, 50 for Oracle, right? That would be a great spot at 120, 40 for Oracle. 40 for CRM coming back down there to the early 200s. Early 200s and like 190s. That would be a great spot. So put both of these tickers on your radar. Obviously, I recommend the Oracle as a buy. CRM is approaching those levels where it makes sense if you're thinking from a long-term investor perspective. If CRM's your ticker, it's setting up here nice for a good buy area. So that's realistically my thoughts, specifically on this name at this time. So yep. So you got your crypto, you got Bitcoin, you're playing there. Microsoft and Meta platforms, you got your plan set up pretty nicely there. Also, let's cover Target and DG. Get some updates here. Let's talk about Dollar General, DG. Currently at about $144 a share. You also have ticker TGT, which I'm going to say this to you guys now. Target is going to have a blowout earnings. You heard me correct. You probably like, yo, L, did L smoke something tonight? Or yep, but no, you heard me correct. Target is going to have a blowout earnings report. So going into March, because they're going to report earnings in March, Tuesday the 10th of March, they will be having a blowout earnings as well. Dollar General on a Thursday, the 12th of March. So they report earnings within the same week, right? Dollar General is going to take this move over 152. And we already know the price target on DG is 175 for this year. Target, I don't see them going no higher than 120. I have a little faith in them, not much. But Target is turning the tide in this. I think stores will obviously continue to be able to do better than what they've done. And I think this is a huge turnaround year for TGT. So I like it a ton. Like TGT. I like DG a little bit better. And the behemoth of them all is ticker Costco. All right. COST, which cost has made it back up here to 976 when we spoke on them, breaking out top of the year. This falling wedge pattern, you see that here. Next stop is going to be $1,000. All right. So Costco on a rally back upward, taking a move back up, falling wedge breakout. Like to see more good stuff out of this name. Ticker COST, Costco, looking good here. More of a breakout. You do have IBM, which has earnings next week. So just put that down 6 days away. IBM is going to have their next quarterly earnings for next week. So they will deliver those numbers. So excited to go ahead and hear from particularly them and those companies. So, So that is pretty much that. We do have classes. I know for most of us, I'm not going to speak for everybody, but a lot of us will probably be stuck indoors this this weekend. So that means it's perfect time to lock back in, right? So Saturday, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., Sunday, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. And then as well, we got 2 classes on Sunday. So we have more than enough time. Everybody enjoy their Friday. We got more than enough time to really lock in, be ready for the next week and study. So we'll have a technical Saturday. So come to class ready early. Sunday, we'll do our watch list and our market updates. 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. will be futures and core strategy. All right. So I want you guys to be in attendance for all 3 of these sessions if you can. If not, you can catch the recordings, which will all come right here. So recording tabs right here underneath information and resources. So if you missed the class, you can come exactly right here, information and resources. All your Zoom codes will go right here, just like the one from tonight. So action-packed weekend ahead of us. Hopefully everybody stays safe. I definitely know that, some people obviously will be impacted different than others. So just really my thoughts. Yep. 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 So those would be the main things that I would recommend as far as, so you got some good stuff to pull out of this. Definitely make sure you take notes on that list that I said. Those are all the recommended buys for this time, companies and individual company wise and their prices. So certain things we have seen already. So that's good. I mean, we in the first 20 days for certain things to pan out the way we want them to. It's a good start. But to me, it's good to be excited about it, but it's still a lot more work to be done. So it's a good first 20 something days, but it's still a lot more to be done. So what I always say is don't get caught up on the highs, but also you can't get caught up too much on the low. So February and March roll up and the market pulls back a bit in February and March. Don't be upset about it. Take the opportunity, because that February and March could be the reason why you get Oracle at $120. In the moment, if Oracle goes to $120, trust me, it'll probably be some upset faces across the market, just the reality. But without those pullbacks, you don't get the opportunities to get good businesses at pretty decent prices. So, look at it from both sides of the lens. Some of the opportunities that we've been waiting on will not come, without a little bit of pain. So that's why I stress to everybody here. Other than that, I'll see you guys pretty much on Saturday and Sunday. Let's lock in and get ready for this big earnings week. Ton of earnings calls that'll be happening. Next week will be busy out the wazoo. Earnings calls every day. And then as well, a Federal Reserve interest rate decision on Wednesday. So as you know, if the Fed does not cut, you know who's going to tweet. You know who's going to have a press conference about the Fed not cutting. Your favorite person, DT, he'll be right at the podium. You know who he's going to blame. He's going to blame Jerome Powell. So it's like, we already see what the script is. Script's right in front of us. So I appreciate you guys for your time. DT, and you guys know my sarcasm with that. So DT, I know he's been doing some press conferences lately. Once again, I think some of that stuff is the distraction. I would not get caught up in his foolishness. It's like a ping pong table with him. One morning he wakes up, he's feeling this way. Next, by nighttime, he's feeling another way. So that's why I say, just stick to your charts, your fundamentals, focus on buying quality businesses at, once again, good prices when they open up. So, yep. I appreciate y'all. We'll connect soon.